Okay, so let's talk about getting into business in South Africa. The reality, no BS. Okay. Hi guys, I'm Llewellyn Devereaux, and welcome to Aldi Mastery, where we talk about economics, business, and offensive mindset. In today's kind of episode, I really wanted to talk about business, right? And I mean, getting into business in South Africa and the reality of it, right? And not cutting anything out and making sure that I kind of give you everything as much as I can for those who are looking to start a business, those who are in business, those who are struggling, those who are finding their way. Because there's a lot of things we have to talk about in terms of the situation. So we're going to get into it today, right? Firstly, the reason I made this video is because obviously I think couple of days ago on Twitter, I don't obviously don't know when you're watching this right now, but there was obviously a situation that happened with somebody who didn't get funding from the IDC, right, the Industrial Development Corporation, and it was a big thing, and it obviously stirred up a lot in the people's memory banks and whatnot, because a lot of the times we don't realize how there's no support in the ecosystem in South Africa when it comes to business, right? So I figured that this was very close to my heart because I mean it touched me on my studio as well. I figured I need to make a video about this because I feel like people don't talk about this, and a lot of people go into business in South Africa and they do what they must do, and then no one knows what they're doing, where they are, and it's just what it is. So anyway, so my journey in business started I think a couple of years ago, right? After studying economics at Wits University, um, I decided right after that. I said, I wanted to get into business. I figured, I wanted to do my own thing. I always wanted to be my own person, my own, figure out my own ideas. I had many ideas from primary school to high school, and I figured, let me just give myself a go. You know what I mean? At the time, it really was just like on a whim, but I had a good idea. I had an idea at the time to create a product or to invent a product for people with hangovers, because at that time we were busy, we were going out a lot and we were drinking a lot, but there was no product in the market that kind of like helped us where we were drinking in the club or wherever we were, to kind of help us when it came to drinking, right, or basically being fine the next day. So my idea came because I had macroeconomics 3 the next morning on a Sunday, or on a Monday, because we were partying on a Sunday, right, which is quite crazy, but at the time in Joburg, partying on a Sunday was a thing that we started to do. And I had macroeconomics through the next morning, and I figured, damn, like, why is there nothing in the market for us to help us in that time? Because we're busy taking shots and everything, but nothing is there. So I had a friend of mine. I said, bro, let's go check out a pharmacy and see what they had. And I saw they had pills and all these little whatever pills they had in the pharmacy. But I figured there was no place, the point of the problem and the point of the solution are not congruent, right? So I was like, what, we have to create something, a product that's going to basically reverse engineer the moment where the problem is, to kind of create the solution where the problem is ultimately, right? And the product was born. The product was called Lohakla, which was alcohol spelled backwards. Um, and the thing about it was that, I mean, it was just sort of on a whim, right? And I had to learn everything from the ground up. I mean, I knew nothing about chemistry, I knew nothing about pharmacy, I knew nothing about product development. I knew basically nothing. All I had was a dream, right? I had a dream, I had an idea, and this thing was driving me, right? And at that time, obviously, I just finished studying. I was staying with two of my friends, and my friends were like, "Cool, this idea of yours it sounds kind of dope. We don't have much money, but we'll put some money down." And they put some money down. I put money down, and I ran with it. I ran with it eventually. Um, Long story short, years later, we built a product. It looked great. It was in store. It was nationwide. Um, and then we were actually supposed to sell it to a big company, but then eventually COVID hit. But for the most part, today I want to just talk about the fact that this was my experience, right? This was what I went through, and during that time, I learned a lot of lessons. A lot of rejection that went into it, a lot of pain. But for the most part, I want to talk to you today about, well, how it actually all comes together, how the funding, how business actually looks like in South Africa. But this was my journey, right? And I mean, the product did get to market. We did get eventually, after multiple years. Like I said, we ended up getting into stores and whatnot, Pick and Pay. It was a whole thing that was really great for me in my own personal development. But then it really left a scar on me, because eventually we couldn't take the product even further, because once again COVID hit and we didn't get the support. But anyway, the first thing you learn about getting to business in South Africa is the fact that there is no ecosystem, right? You have an idea, there is no place you can literally go to and say, I've got this idea, and they're willing to accept you and say, oh, okay, here's this person coming with ideas. let's listen to what he has to say. Let us go and really, really jump into and help him get from A to B to Z all the way through to the market, right? Nothing like that exists. So the first thing you have to accept in SA in South Africa is the fact that when you do business in South Africa, when you get into business in South Africa, you are on your own. You have to accept this from the jump, and that's what it is, right? So for me, initially my friends and I put money into the company. Obviously, we register the company. You decide what you want the company is going to be called, and from there you have to start making calls. You have to start cold calling people. You need to start making sure that you use Google a lot. That's all you have left. You know what I mean? That's what you have to your disposal. So for me, there was no. I realized in the beginning. I mean, the first funding we got was from the Innovation Hub in Pretoria, right? So they funded us to get the formulation. I had to find people that were gonna create the liquid for me. I had to find people that were gonna create the formula for the product. And we had to decide if we are going to go medical route or beverage route. We went beverage route because beverage allowed us to be in stores and whatnot versus pharmaceutical. If it was a pharma product, it would have to go through MCC, medical controls, medical protocols. We didn't want that, right? But for the most part, we were funded initially after a couple of months and multiple pitching sessions to kind of get enough money in to do clinical trials. And at this time, obviously now you're meeting people that are going to help supply you with bottles, with this and that and whatever. But the thing is, you're working on your energy, you're working on being able to promise, you're working on being able to guarantee, because ultimately people are going to develop something for you. They're going to create prototypes for you because they believe that you're going to be able to be a person who's going to execute. You know what I mean? That was how it was for me, Maybe it was who I am as a person, maybe it was how they operate. I don't know. But for the most part, we had money for formulation, we had money for to kind of get some sort of development going, and then we were only given like 3 months worth of salaries. At the time, I think there were two, three founders, but we were given 2-3 months worth of salaries, right? And that was all that we had. And from there, they said, okay, cool. From now, we've given you seed funding. We were going to, and to be honest, I'm grateful for that because that seed funding allowed us to get to the next stage, right? So we had formulation money and we're given money for clinical trials, right? So people had to go and drink alcohol and then test out Lohokla in the independent clinical trial or clinical study, whatever it was that was happening. But that's what happened. But from there, this way everything started to fall apart. So you started to learn the hard way that, they tell you, okay, you get funding at NEF, at IDC, at CFA, at NYDA, at CEDA. So CFA will give you a loan, right? But they'll give you a loan, but the loan is basically has to be guaranteed on something. So you have to have something to guarantee that loan. If you don't have anything to guarantee the loan, you can't get funding. So that's one thing that's blown already from the jump, right? You forget about that. And their loans, I remember it was like something like 0 to 10 million rand, but once again, you needed surety. So that wasn't going to happen. CEDA will pay for your marketing material, right? And generally what they typically do to a certain number, I think it was something like 150,000 or something, but basically what they'll do is give you a banner and some marketing materials, which, I mean, at the end of the day, what are you going to do with those marketing materials? Because you need to you need to build your product and get it further, right? You need to develop your product sometimes even further. You need to do marketing, but one thing about finding an SA, no one cares about marketing. No one cares about that. You have other competitors in the market, right? IDC wasted my time. They went back and forth with us for like 6-7 a whole year back and forth, only for them to say to me and us to say, okay, guys, your product is not innovative enough. And for me, it was really messed up because what happens in South Africa is that we have people in these funding agencies that have jobs there that have never started anything in their lives, never started a business in their lives, that they are the ones judging and tasting the viability of any business and product ideas that people come with. I mean, how can you have a situation where risk or non-risk takers are judging risk takers? It doesn't make sense. We're operating on two different frames of existence, right? So that was the thing that I didn't understand. But ultimately, we wanted to get 5 million rand from IDC. It didn't work out, but they wasted a good 6 to 12 months of our lives going back and forth, where we were told that if you went to these places, they would obviously help build your product further to get into market, whatever the situation is. It didn't work out. NYDA will give you, I think, 250,000 rand grant funding. But once again, it's, $250,000 rand, what's it going to do for you? But that's the maximum amount. For the most part, they'll do maybe 50,000 rand for equipment, whatever. But for the most part, they're not going to give you, like the amount of money that you actually need. So this happens all the time. There's GEP, there's NF. I went to all these places. Eventually, you realize that you're on your own, right? From there, you have, once again, family, friends. Eventually, we got an investor on board to kind of help us with a certain amount of money. But the thing is, once again, what I want to make sure you understand is that there is no ecosystem. There is no startup ecosystem. They tried making this whole thing of Silicon Valley, Silicon Cape, whatever. Because remember now in America, a lot of these startup the startup jargon and the entrepreneurship culture or the startup culture is based upon a developed market, a market that has been a consumer market that has 300 or 400 million people that are homogenous in terms of language. They are consumers. They're operating globally. There's capital in and out, flowing in and out the country, and so you learn that when you try to take these ideologies and philosophies and this jargon and you try to apply it into a place where or into an ecosystem where it doesn't exist, you can't take something that is built and copy it in and paste it into a country that is still building this entire scenario that we're trying to talk about right now, right? It doesn't work. And so you learn the hard way that there were so many accelerators, incubators. Everyone is giving us all this jargon, MVP, minimal viable product, all these things that sound great. You the textbooks, the books, and the truth of the matter is that at the end of the day, business is simple. You have a product, you have customers, you meet each other, you have a product or a service, and you find customers. That's what it comes down to. You give them whatever your product or your service, and they give you money. That is what business is about. Not this nonsense we were taught about when it comes to business. Yes, it's all these things all sound great. They're great teaching material and whatnot. But for the most part, guys, the truth of the matter is that business is this: you have a product, you have a service, you find customers or clients, and you serve them, and they pay you. That's it. There's no other nonsense you need to be understanding. That's the basic pure principle of business, right? So, and in this context, you start to understand that you can't copy and paste Western or developed economies philosophies into a developing country's philosophy. You can't. It doesn't work that way. So ultimately, what happens in Africa, you need to build for Africa, or you have to build for Africa with Africa in mind. Okay, this is just how it works. And the truth of the matter is, like I said, you're on your own. There is no funding models. There is no support systems. There is no people that you can go to, a company you can go to that's going to look at your product or look at your ideas and say, okay, we're going to help you with this, and you're going to get from A to B to Z. It doesn't work like that. Okay, that's the first thing you have to understand. So the process starts like this: you're either going to have an idea, you're going to decide for yourself, am I going to be a B2C company, a B2C business, or a B2B business, or a B2G? So B2C is, am I going to be creating products for consumers? Am I going to be creating things that consumers are going to be buying from me? Right? First part. Second part is, am I going to be a B2B business? I ultimately means that am I going to be a business that creates services for other businesses, right? So businesses become my clients, okay? So I'm either providing a service or I'm selling a product. It could be IT, it could be, marketing services, it doesn't matter. But the thing is that you're selling a product to businesses, okay? And then there is the final model, which is the B2G, which is business to government, where we have in South Africa what we call tenderpreneurs, right? So what are you going to be? Are you going to be a tenderpreneur? What are you going to be? You have to choose your model. You can have one model, you can have multiple models, it's up to you. But for me, getting to business, my learning curve was a B2C. So I created a product, and I figured this product, people drink alcohol, they get hangovers, and they are going to be hungover, and they're going to want my product. And I realized that this product is going to be so amazing. And I think that was my mistake. I think I was too obsessed with making the product. I was obsessed with product development. I was obsessed with the fact that I knew this product worked, and I knew that it was cool, and I knew that the product would make sense. But I didn't anticipate the things that I would encounter, okay, into the retailers. So you need to understand something about consumers, retailers, and everybody in this country is that you make a product. Now, if you make a product in your own kitchen or your own garage, whatever it is, and you maybe, let's go back to the lemonade example I made a couple of videos ago, right, where you decide that you want to make lemonade and you want to basically make a bottle of lemonade and you call it Louis Lemonade, and you're ultimately selling this lemonade for, you make 20 lemonade bottles per month, and you're selling 20 lemonade bottles per month. That's fine. No one's going to get upset. You're making your money. Whatever it is you're making, it's your sidle money. It's okay. It's great. The issue comes now when you really want to make money. You need to be able to scale, which means that you need to be able to operate nationwide. You need to operate via a wide range of geography in order to make a lot of money. But because consumers have to have access to your product, So you think about the fact that when you decide to go and buy, let's say, washing detergent, you go to a retailer, you find it close to you, you find washing detergent, you buy it, you go home, you're done. All right. But the mechanisms behind this is the fact that a the product must be developed. Okay, it must be made. So there has to be thousands upon thousands of product available. Okay, which is they must be done, produced somewhere in some factory, and then they have to be stored in a warehouse. Okay, these two processes are an expense. The production, the manufacturing, and the storing. These are all expenses, right? From there, you need to be able to be in partnership with a distributor who's going to help get your products nationwide. Okay, now the thing about retailers in SA is that they will not allow you to bring the products yourself directly to them, to the warehouses, unless you basically have, unless you use their partners that they distribute, right? And they will obviously always take a cut. So retailers will have a percentage of whatever it is. They'll take a percentage of whatever you're selling. So you decide, I want to sell this detergent for 200, or this lemonade, let me say lemonade for 200 rand, and then they take a cut, maybe 30% of that. You take whatever's left. Distributors take about 25% of that to get your product nationwide. Okay, and then you are left with obviously the profit that you make on whatever's left from selling to distributors, and they sell to retailers. You are left with the manufacturing costs, and you make some sort of profit on that. Okay, but now hang on a minute. No one tells you about the fact that you need marketing, right? Because the thing is, I didn't realize that getting a product into a store, developing a product and getting a product into the store is actually, to be honest with you, 30% of the job. Let's say 40%. Let me be lenient today. 40% of the job. Okay. The other 60% is solely dependent on getting the product off the shelf, and that is, they call it a push and pull lever, right? So that means that consumers need to actively know your product exists in the store to go and buy it. If consumers don't know your product exists in the store, because consumers tend to buy products based on habits, they aren't necessarily new centric, which means that they aren't walking into a product store, into a retailer looking for new exciting products, because number one, their disposable income is limited, so they're not trying to take risks with a product that hasn't been tested, or there's no marketing out about it, there is no buzz about it, there is no hype about it. Like, they don't want to do that. Okay, and so the mistake I made was that I didn't realize that even though you're doing some sort of marketing via social media, whatever you want to create, right, it only creates this much of awareness. Okay, what companies do is that they pay for billboards, they do TV ads, they do radio ads, they do Insta promotions, they do all these other things. And for me, at the time, I realized that we went into this war completely underfunded, and that's when you started to realize that funding an asset, they don't pay for marketing. But the thing is, the moment you put a product in store, there is no section in the store that says this is a startup section and shame, give them some support, whatever. There's no. If you produce a washing detergent tomorrow, or you produce lemonade tomorrow, they're not putting you in the primary school section of the retailer. It doesn't exist. They put you in the exact same place with your competitors who have the millions and the billions that are spending every single month on marketing, when you don't have that. And so first thing you realize that when you get the luck to basically get into retailers, once again, getting into retail is no one walks that path for you, because you're going to meet buyers, you're going to meet people that are going to, they have a budget they have to spend on products that they believe will kind of work, right? And they have manners that they have to kind of tick. They have to find some new products. They have to find products that are aligned to whatever their buying schedule is going to be. So you have to always convince a buyer at a retailer in the category that you operate in to buy a product. And they'll tend to sometimes buy a few, buy a certain amount, whereas manufacturers are going to want to, obviously your process of manufacturing becomes cheaper the more you produce, right? So if you the smaller the batch you produce, the more expensive it is to produce. Whereas retailers are not going to buy all of your big produce if you have a big manufacturing. If you manufacture a lot of product, right? They're going to start you small because they want to test out, and sometimes they'll test it out on consignment, which means that they only pay you after you've sold whatever you've sold. But now think about it like this: you've got no marketing, you've got no backing, you are on your own. Okay, and they'll say to you, how do you plan to help this product sell in store? How do you plan to help me make money from this product? Because that's when they want you to pay for merchandising. Merchandising is is all the promotional material, promotional aspects you find in store. And sometimes this is just how it goes. There is no assistance for this. Okay, so the most difficult thing to get into is a B2C business. And I will not advise you to do this unless you've got enough deep pockets for A, production, B, warehousing, three, to be, or C, being able to hold the stock, D, distribution, and E, marketing, right? Marketing is the biggest thing. Marketing is literally the entire game. Okay, without marketing, nobody knows you exist. Like I've always told people for the longest time that marketing or not doing marketing is like winking at a girl in the dark. Like you know what you're doing, but she doesn't know you exist. Okay, this is a very important aspect to understand. So everything with B2C comes down to marketing. It comes down to being able to create market fit for the consumers. It also comes down to making sure that you have a price point because you're competing for the consumer's attention. All right, that's what B2C comes down to. But if you build a right brand, if you build a great product, if you build something that's great, it can then last you for decades. That's what my mentor told me. My mentor said to me, Llewellyn, if you decide to make a product and it works, and once again, the thing about the product is that you can copy and paste it, right? You can make one product and sell it multiple times. That's the beautiful thing about B2C. But the bad side about it is that it has to take off in the market. If it doesn't take off in the market, you're blown. Okay? That's just what it is. So then it comes down to B2B. B2B is much easier because B2B, you need a skill. So you're a lawyer, you're an accountant, you're in marketing, you're producing some sort of software. Okay? The thing with that is that businesses are always going to need other businesses that are going to be contracted to them or via agencies, or that they're going to want to buy stuff from them to kind of make their business even better. So it's a much better model because that way you have a client. Okay, you have a client, and if you have a skill, it doesn't require you to build something specific. It doesn't require you to what would I say, market to consumers. It's just if a business needs you, if a business needs a service, they're going to come to you, or if you go to them and you give them the service, there's consulting, whatever it is, they're going to buy into what you have to do. Okay, the only issue with that is the fact that A, you can't replicate it easily. Okay, B, depending on the size of the company, there's a lot of red tape, and for the most part, they tend to have bigger service companies that are also kind of in the space already competing. Okay, so getting a B2B business into a big company's periphery is very difficult because once again, they already have companies that are going to service them, or they already service them at the moment. Okay, so it's difficult for you to get into that scenario, but once you do get into it, the money is its own thing. It could be good, it could be bad, but it's based upon how big the company is. But the only thing about it is that if the company fires you and you lose your clients, and you don't have multiple clients in a B2B model, you've lost all your income. So it comes down to applying a diversification model in the scenario in the B2B model. But once again, it's easier because all you need is a skill. You need to have access. You need to be able to execute. Because remember one thing, you are paid for three things, right? The demand for your products and services, B, your ability to execute, okay, and three, the difficulty of replacing you. It's very important you understand these 3 points. Okay, so this is how it works. So whether a B2C or B2B model, you have to always deliver on what you've been kind of brought on to do. So if you don't do that, they fire you. You lose a client. That's how it works. Okay. B2G obviously comes down to depending on how which country in. Government's always going to need service providers to kind of provide services to the people. So this is where tenders are being put out into the world, into the country, and you've got what people call tenderpreneurs who kind of are the ones who go and bid for tenders and kind of supply municipalities and governments and government agencies certain work or certain products and certain service delivery mechanisms for the community or for the country and for the citizens, right? So this is another model. But once again, this one comes down to connections. It comes down to who you know, comes down to being able to be very good at finding supplies, being able to make profit, being able to find ways to kind of make money in your own way. But for the most part, this is where in South Africa we've had a lot of trouble with this because there's a lot of corruption that comes with it. You know what I mean? But for the most part, we're not going to jump into that. So, like I said to you, marketing is a very big thing, and I want you to understand that no matter what you do, whether you're B2C or B2B, people need to know you exist. People cannot pay you if they cannot see you, and that's why I always have this motto that says proximity beats hard work and hard work beats talent. It doesn't matter how skilled and how talented you are. If you're not in the rooms, it doesn't matter what you're doing, because people who are in the rooms are always going to get the opportunities that talented people cannot sometimes get because they're in the room. And a lot of times people think that, okay, my talent and my hard work will get me there. But for the most part, it really comes down to being able to being in the rooms where the opportunities are. So it's very imperative that you network as a person, right? It's very like you cannot start a business. Money does not like introversion. Money likes extroversion. Money likes people that are out there, meeting people, touching people. You have to be out there making a noise out in the world. That's how it works. But the thing is, introversion gets things done, but it gets shit done, but extroversion takes us to the world. It's a very important thing that you understand the specific point, right? So, but in the context of Africa and SA, like I said, there is no ecosystem. There is no value. The value chains do exist, but the value chains are very exclusionary. So, getting into business in SA, it's really a product of you have to have the privilege for it, right? You have to be able to have the runway, the money to be able to attend meetings, being able to make the phone calls, being able to, you have to get, there must be order, you have to have your registration documents, you have to have your bank account, you have to have all these things in place, and you also have to have the runway to be able to go to attend meetings, because once again, you can't have a job and then want to do all these things at the same time and then being able to, because people now have work at the same time, so you can't be stopping your job during the day to go in and try build the business out there, meeting people, because the people that you want to meet also are at work, so you can't be at work and trying to meet people at work because they're also at work. So something has to die at some point, you know what I mean? So but once again, there is no service, there is no ecosystem, there is no support, and everybody and their mama will give you advice. Everyone will tell you, do it like this, do it like that. The thing is, you have to be able to be, you are alone in the fire, okay? No one is there telling you and walking the path, because once again, remember, South Africa's got a very bad apartheid legacy, right? And so a lot of people, in high school, you had a lot of people that of different races who were able to obviously work for their parents. They're able to have exposure to business, whereas people who are of color didn't have access to business knowledge. So what we were taught was go to school, study law, study engineering, study medicine, go to get an education to get a job. So the psychology of South Africans hasn't changed much, in a sense that we are still very much a consumer country. We're still a paper pushing country. So no one out there, no one in your immediate family, if you're a person of color, is going to give you advice on business, because they were not taught that. It's a lesson, it's a skill that must be learned, right? You're not taught about networking. You're not taught about being able to build things or create things, or the fact that you're able to do this in the first place. Because then when you say you want to start a business, people say to you, okay, start something that makes sense. So maybe a salon, maybe do something that, maybe a car wash, maybe things that people make sense. But if you want to do something that is radical, it is very difficult for people to see what it is that you're doing and be able to advise you and be able to kind of connect you, because once again, they didn't have that. Our parents didn't have that, right? So there is no business advice, there is no business access, there is no inheritance, there is no access to networks, there is no people that have made mistakes before that can tell you not to do A, B, C, D, E. You know what I mean? It's like I said, it's about connections, it's about access. This whole thing is about access, because you think that business is difficult to do, but actually, guys, like I said to you, it comes down to having a product, a service, and customers and clients, and being able to provide for those customers and clients, and they pay you. That's what business comes down to. But the thing is that it takes time. It takes time to build something from the ground up. It takes time to be able to make your mistakes. It's costly to make your mistakes. It takes time to find out what works, because once again, how a product starts in your mind isn't necessarily how it eventually ends up in the market, right? So you have to reverse engineer a market fit of a product and bring it back to how consumers think, how consumers interact with the product once again. So these things are not things people teach you or tell you. You have to learn the hard way. And I always call it the baptism of fire, because for me, that's what it was. It was tough. You had to deal with rejection. You had to deal with people not answering your call, people not taking you seriously, people, losing money. You had to, go into debt. You had to go broke for many years, because you believe in this thing so much, but you learn the harder that there is no support. So it really comes down to understanding that it is a product of privilege. It is a product of luck. It is a product of having a certain skill set. Education does help. Not in the sense that when you do business, people are going to ask you for education, but I think for me, it's the fact that you're able to complete things. And I think for me, it's very important as people that you learn as a person how to finish things, right? It's a very important aspect to learn, because a lot of times people start something and then eventually things fall apart, and it's natural, because like I said to you, so many things happen to you start a business. It comes down to timing, it comes down to market fit, it comes down to, if COVID happens, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Being able to have enough money to develop the product all the way to the end, being able to get people to know about the product, marketing, awareness, all these come into play. And so a lot of times people ask me if I could do it differently, how would I do it? How would I go into it? But for the most part, it's also about understanding where you live. We live in Africa. We live in a place where our markets are not connected. And I think right now they're trying to create the AFCFTA, which is the African Free Trade Agreement area, that is kind of creating this whole thing of one market, right? So if you think how America is the United States of America, imagine the United States of Africa, where all the countries in Africa become one market, right? One currency. We're able to sell products between each other, because once again, the thing with America and the developed countries is that they operate on a global mentality. They build businesses and they create companies, and they know that they are selling to the world. Whereas Africa, we are takers, right? We are copiers, we are followers of market trends. So we will create we will then license products from other countries. We will license shows and put them here because they've really worked in America or in the Western countries. Whereas with us, we are thinking too much about the local market. So the African mentality when it comes to business is not necessarily about global domination or global access. It's more about local supply, survivalist, being able to sell whatever you have to make your rent, to get your expenses. So ultimately, South Africans are engaged in getting into business for to pay the bills, and whereas in America or in the Western countries, they are there for profit. They're there for shareholder value. They're there to make billions. They're there to ultimately dominate and get into markets. Hence why we're there with Uber. We're there with, you're watching YouTube right now, Twitter. Everything is there. They are operating with a global mentality, whereas we are operating on local mentality because we've not learned to think about the fact that we can actually go into the markets, right? But once again, there is no ecosystem that helps and supports us to do that. So our country doesn't have the greatest bilateral agreements with other countries in terms of new products versus raw materials and agricultural products, right? They've got that down to the T. Whereas everything else that comes from there, we don't have those kind of good relationships with countries, and it's unfortunate, but it has to be built. Okay, so I think some pointers just to wrap up this entire video, so I don't talk for too long, is that when people say to me, what would I do differently? Would I go into corporate? Would I go into business? And the thing about business is that you have to also be honest with yourself. Are you a person who's employable, right? For me, I kind of knew, I just had this thing. I don't know what you want to call it, X factor, whatever you want to call it. I just had this thing where I just felt like I didn't want to be like everyone else. I don't want to do that for myself. And I'm not saying it's bad. You must know yourself. You must know what you want from this life. It's very important to know from the jump, what do you want? And you have to be honest with yourself. Like this thing of lying to yourself is, don't tell me that you want to go into business because, oh no, you have a dream, whatever. Yeah, I have a dream, it's great, but you have to be honest with the fact that A, you want to make money. B, you want to leave something. You want to be a player. You want to be a player in the game, not just a spectator. You have to give yourself real tangible reasons for why you want to get into business, because there are many days when you're going to feel like you don't want to do this anymore, where there are no results. And so it really is a long-term play. It's not a 2-3 month situation, especially if you do B2C. It is a long-term play. You have to be able to do everything yourself. You have to wear multiple hats, okay? It's one of those things where you have to survive until you get lucky. It's how it works, okay? And when you get lucky, you also have to be able to have discipline that's not going to squander what you've created for yourself. So you have to constantly be the engine, the driver, the wheels, the tires. You have to be every single thing to yourself in the scenario, okay? That's how it works. So, but I see there is value in some people being in corporate first and then going into business later on, because maybe they want to have freedom. And for me, it was about freedom. I wanted freedom. I didn't care. I wanted to be able to control my time. I wanted to control how much money I made. I don't want to have a ceiling. I wanted to know how much. I wanted to make a lot of money, have freedom, and just have autonomy in my life. I don't want to ask somebody for leave. I don't want to. That was not me, right? And that's why I'm saying it's important to know who and what you are as a person. But then you have to understand you have to carve out your own way, and you have to be able to use and access your privilege. Whatever privilege you have to use and access it. Don't feel bad about it, because that's what people do. Life is about connections. And from there, you need to go out and meet people. If you're not a person who's willing to meet people and being able to go out there and sell yourself and sell what you got as a person, you're not gonna get far in this game. You know what I mean? So it really is. If you're a corporate person, be a corporate person. Don't force yourself to be something that you're not. Be a corporate person, right? If you're a person who wants to get into business, be willing to play the long-term game. Being willing to go through the rejection, go through the failures, because failure is a feature. It's not something that is foreign. It is a feature. It is part of the process, because you need to keep learning and improving your approach to how you want to move and how you want to get to things. You know what I mean? That's how it goes. And once again, it really comes down to being able to constantly upskilling yourself, constantly learning things, constantly being able to iterate, being able to combine different things, learn things. Maybe your first business might not work. Maybe your second business might work. Maybe your third one might work. Maybe your fourth one is one that actually blows up or becomes something. But the thing is, you have to think big. You have to think big. You have to want the great life for yourself. You have to be able to be honest with the fact that you want to make money. It's a very important thing that you have a good relationship with the desire to make money. Not feel bad about it, not feel snacks about it. Be honest with the fact that you want to do this thing and you want to go big. Because that's what's going to force you to enjoy the other side of or what they call the upside of what you want to do. You know what I mean? And to be honest with you, you have to be willing to also put in the years, and like I said to you, if you don't have the balls and the grit to go the years, not making money, struggling, staying with your parents if you have to, then corporate is for you. That's just what it comes down to, because once again, and sometimes you can be in corporate and also be able to have a side hustle as a business and be able to, allow yourself to be able to build something on the side and what they call moonlighting when you get home. You know what I mean? Or another thing that's happening right now is the creator economy. Like here I am right now. I have multiple things I'm running, multiple things, and it's very important as a person that you diversify, because COVID taught me that if something like COVID can come and destroy an entire business if it's not, or if it's exposed in the wrong industry. So it's very important also that you also understand that the concept of multiple income streams is very important. Okay, you have to have multiple businesses that are operating. Maybe one in marketing, one in this, one in that, you have to be at some point be able to understand that this is how you're going to survive and sustain yourself over many years, and also create order. It's very important that you're keeping records of what you're doing, financial systems, and sometimes governance. We don't like governance, but it was my weakness, but I've learned to become better at it as a person. So you have to know that you're doing this all on your own until eventually you're able to hire people, have a team, contract people, work with people. It's up to you. But like I said, be honest with what it is that you want to do, how you want to move. And so, but what I want to leave you with is the fact that there is no ecosystem, there is no support, there is no retailers don't care about whether you're a new business, whether they don't care. They just want to know, is this product going to sell in my store? And if the answer is yes, they'll put it in store. If it's no, they won't put it in store. And marketing is the be and all of this entire process. You have to be able to get word of your products or services out there. Without marketing, don't do it. Stay in corporate, do what you have to do. But and like I said to you, if you have a family support, if you have you know that you're a person who likes being out, you want to be out, you want to make money, you like having money, you like whatever, if you aren't willing to put up with uncertainty, don't go into it. You know what I mean? Because getting into business in South Africa is playing the game on hard mode. All right, it's playing it fully on hard mode, and no one supports you. But with enough tenacity, with enough networking, with enough determination, with enough persistence, with enough luck, grit, and privilege, right, and access, and I think also being able to have fun with it. You have to also be able to have fun with it. I think that's a very important thing that we tend to miss, that you have to enjoy what you're doing to be able to combine certain aspects of what you're doing and be able to learn from your failures. And I think if you have all those elements, you'll be able to get far, But apart from that, the truth of the matter is that we are on our own. Funding is broken in our country, and I don't know if they'll ever get it right, but I do know that we have to start doing it bit by bit. And I think those who are in business are aware of the fact that we have to start doing this thing bit by bit. And eventually I think it will get there. We live in a beautiful country, and I think it eventually will get there. But for the most part right now, we are definitely on our own. And hopefully it eventually changes. But anyway, that's what I wanted to leave you guys with today. Thanks for joining me. Until next time. Boom.